Our lesson 2, air hydraulic brake systems. Our U.S. Army Light Wheeled Vehicle Mechanical MOS 63B Skill Level 3 Course Wheeled Vehicle Braking System Subcourse number OD1008. Army Ordnance Center School, 5 credit hours. And we're on page 83. Lesson 2, air brake system. Describe the principal construct for the operation of air brake hydraulic system condition. Give the information, purpose, components, and the operation inspection air brake hydraulic system. Reference TM9 8000 Learning Event. Describe the component for the air hydraulic brake system. Introduction. Most passenger cars, light duty trucks have static hydraulic brake system which use only the energy applied with the brake foot pedal. But the type of the brake with a good job with the light duty vehicle, with the medium and heavy duty vehicle that require with a better braking system. Army's 2.5 ton of some of the 5 ton tactical design trucks have air hydraulic brakes. Air hydraulic brakes are hydraulically compressed air system. The hydraulic system, straight hydraulic brake systems. Air hydraulic brakes are about the same. Compressed air system supply with the air pressure to the boost, to the hydraulic pressure to the wheel, with the cylinders above the mount with the supply with the master cylinder. Figure 13 shows your air hydraulic brake system. Alright, air hydraulic brake system has all components of the straight hydraulic system plugged with the compressed air system. The side with the boosting of the hydraulic pressure of the brakes on the truck with the compressed air system can also be applied with the brakes over the trailer with the operating accessory with the wiper motor and horn. Or the master cylinder used with the air hydraulic brake with the lid, like one of the described lesson with the hydraulic brake with the straight hydraulic brake with the master cylinder. Receive the initial mechanical force with the pedal linkage chain with the hydraulic pressure that sends the brake fluid with the under the pressure directly to the wheel cylinder with the air hydraulic brake with the master cylinder. Send with the brake fluid under the pressure of the air hydraulic cylinder pressure that goes to the wheel with the cylinder. On all military design vehicle, the master cylinder has a vent fitting at the top of the reservoir connecting a vent line to the vent system of the vehicle that prevents water from entering the master cylinder through the vent during the forwarding operation. Special drill bolt and fittingly installed into the filler cap of the master cylinder to serve the purpose. Air hydraulic cylinder. The air hydraulic cylinder is put in the operation the hydraulic pressure for the master cylinder with the compressed air to move the hydraulic pressure from the master cylinder. The Army uses one more air hydraulic cylinders. All models contain with the same major units operate with the same principle. They are made with these 3 major units in one assembly. Units of the control of the unit, power cylinder with the slave with the cylinder with the units of the M809 series vehicle consists of the air value, air cylinder, hydraulic cylinder, and piston. Control unit control with the control valve with the relay with the position which is the hydraulically operated brake fluid with the master cylinder as the diaphragm compensator. Assembly with the operated with the pressure difference between brake fluid, air, and spring pressure as they return spring hold with the hydraulic relay position diaphragm. Assembly with release of the position. There is no hydraulic pressure. 2 air poppet valve with assembly 1 stem of the control of the air pressure from the flowing with the out over the power cylinder. The poppet valves are normally held with the release position with the poppet return spring. Our power cylinder consists of the cylinder piston rod with the piston return spring with the pressure emitted with the head end of the cylinder compressed with the piston ring spring extending the piston rod with the air pressure relief with the spring retract with the rod with the air around air and the rod end of the cylinder can pass freely in and out with the cylinder with the breather airline they attach to the airline intake with the vehicle with the line tight with the piston seal prevents air pressure from leaking between the piston and the cylinder wall. The slave cylinder hydraulic cylinder will contain with the piston cup. Both cylinders contain a check valve assembly hydraulic outlet maintain with a slight amount of the pressure. Residual hydraulic lines, wheel, cylinders, piston cup are hollow and contain check valve with the valve of the brake with the fluid to pass through them freely with the power cylinder. Retract with the power cylinder extends check valve blocks an opening through the center of the slave cylinder piston. Our figure 14 shows the air compressor, unloading clearance with the water connection, discharge, unloading valve, intake manifold, oil seal, oil pump relief, oil check valve, air strainer, unloading lever. The air compressor pump for the air pressure from the operator with the air hydraulic cylinder with the compressor driven with the vehicle with the engine. All type of the engine is running. Are generally belt driven, but on some 5-ton trucks are greater than driven the air compressor for the M809 zero vehicle with a single with the action piston type with the cooling and lubricating with the accomplished with the engine respectively with the cooling and lubricating meaning with the compressor for the valve with the left side of the engine unloaded with the valve with the cylinder head compressed air pressure exceed with the predetermined level. Then some of the compressor for the valve lubricating oil with the care with the engine oil gallery with the compressor flexible line oil leaking path with the compressor bearings drained into the compressor mounting base with the return linkage connected with the mounting base return to the oil engine crankcase. The other compressor for with the valve with the lubricating oil with the carried oil from the air compressor through the passage with the compressor mounting base. Compressor mounting base oil passage in line with the oil passage of the engine crankcase and the compressor. The compression of the air with the compressor creates so much heat that the compressor must be cooled. Some of the compressors are air cooled while the others are water cooled. The engine cooling system, air cooled compressors have cooling fins around the cylinder with the cylinder head. The water cooled compressor, the water jackets either in the cylinder head around the cylinders, water inlet line and a water outlet connection compressor water jacket with the engine cooling system. Compressor has an air check valve with one intake, one exhaust valve for each cylinder. The valve is closed with a light spring with a tension with the cylinder intake valve with the open line of suction created by the cylinder piston with a downward and inward intake stroke with the exhaust valve with the opening with the air with the compressor with the cylinder opening with the piston. Upward exhaust valve stroke air strainer is mounted on the air compressor with the intake port with the air strainer inlet with the connect with the engine air intake. During the intake stroke of the either compressed cylinder is drawn through the air strainer intake valve and into the cylinder on the exhaust valve stroke of the air compressor with the cylinder hold to the intake valve tightly closed. Open exhaust valve and the compressor air flows through the exhaust valve into the compressor air system through the air discharge line connected to the compressor. An unloading mechanism cylinder unloads the compressor compression whenever the air pressure reaches the predetermined maximum. Unloader mechanism generally the diaphragm connected with the linkage, though that the air pressure is applied to one side of the diaphragm is moved to hold either the unloader valve or the intake valves open. At this time, the compressor will continue to run to the engine, but will not compress the air when the air pressure drops. A certain predetermined amount of the pressure is relieved at the diaphragm, permitting the intake of the unloader valve to close the compressor pumps and pressure again. Air governor. Your operation under mechanism is controlled by the air with the governor main different design with the governor chief. They all serve the same purpose. They operate with the same basic principle. Primary air temperature for the hell with the close with the spring tension for the air pressure for the compressor for the reservoir with the apply with the diaphragm piston. Similar device with the elbow with the spring tension to attempt to open the valve when the air pressure reaches the desired maximum of 100 to 120, 110 to 120 psi with the air pressure overcome with the spring tension for the governor valve opens. Air pressure flow for the open valve with the unloader mechanism opening the unloader valve with the air pressure drop to the desired minimum spring tension. Governor valve overcomes the air pressure closing the valve with the release of the air pressure tube of the unloader and the unloader valve closed. The air governor is mounted with the engine side with the cowl with the firewall, at least two air line with the maybe connected with the governor, one pressure line with the air supply, one line with the unloader over the compressor, and third line with the pressure exhaust pipe with the connected with the governor of the vehicle to the vent system. The governor contains the filler and the strain air with the passing through it. Most governors have external adjustment allowed with the mechanical the chain with the tension with the spring holding the air valve closed, which in turn changes the amount of air pressure required to open the governor. Our air reservoir. 2 round steel tanks, each of the truck with a hold supply with the compressor of the tanks large enough to provide air under pressure for the survivable brake application after the engine has stopped running the reservoir off, provide with the placing of the trap with the condensed oil with the water vapor of the air, which is heated during the compression with the cool with the tank with the causing of any of the vapors air with the death of the drain cock and provide with the bottom of each of the reservoir with the drain train trap condensation. Safety valve. A relief valve known as safety valve is installed with one over the reservoir with the to prevent the pressure for the system from building up with the safe operation pressure. If the governor under loader mechanism should fail, the valve is held by the close of the spring pressure opening with the air pressure for the air pressure in the reservoir exceeds 150 psi of the valve opening and exhausting the excessive pressure. Warning signal buzzer. Electronically operated buzzer located in the dash panel with a warning with the vehicle operated air pressure failed below with the operating level. The buzzer sound with the air operated switch to the close with the contact. Connect the electrical circuit between the buzzer and the vehicle batteries. The switch is generally mounted with the dash for the panel near the buzzer for the connect with the air line with the air reservoir. Air pressure for the piston switch tends to open with the switch contacts. When spring pressure tends to close with the switch with the contact with the air pressure falls below 60 psi. Spring pressure closed with the switch and the buzzer sounds. Pressure gauge. Air pressure gauge located with the dash panel show the amount of the pressure of the air system. Gauge is made to read pressure from 0 to 120 psi. Your hand control lever. Some trucks have a hand control lever mounted with the steering column with the individual control brake for the tow vehicle for the 2 air line with the connector with the valve. 1 supply line from the truck's air reservoir, others in the control line. This attached with the brakes of the trailer. The third thread air opening of the valve with the air exhaust outlet and is wide is left open. To handle the control assembly of the inlet exhaust valve with the mount within 1 step of the only one, the valve is normally held with the exhaust portion for the intake of the exhaust valve to ring 1 type of the hand with the control valve with the move of the exhaust tube with the push tube or upward on the exhaust tube spring with the downward cam plate spring. Hand lever on the control valve with the U with the rotate with the cam changing with the tension with the cam plate spring. With the hand lever the release position exhaust tube with the spring with the hold with the exhaust tube up with the air pressure with the trailer brake with the control line exhausted through the exhaust tube. Outlet on the control valve pulling the hand hand lever to apply with the position, creep with the cam plate with the spring tension on the top of the exhaust tube. This move the exhaust tube down, first contact with the exhaust valve, blocking the exhaust passage through the tube, then it moves the air exhaust inlet valve of the assembly down, pushing the air inlet valve off its seat. Air supply pressure flows past opening inlet with the valve with the control line with apply with the trailer brake with the control. Air pressure pushes down on the exhaust tube, tending to lift the and close the inlet valve with the pressure above the below of the tube with the equal inlet valve closes, change the position and lever with the amount of spring tension pushing on the exhaust tube with the done will change. The driver can regulate with the amount of the controlled trailer pressure. Are your trailer coupling hose connected with the two air outlets provided with the rear of the truck, connected with the brake system. The trailer brakes of the outlet contained with the tag word with the emergency printed on it, and the second outlet with the tag labeled service. The airline connection trailer also have the emergency service tag with the connecting with the two brake systems together. Emergency line with the truck has connected to the emergency line. Then the trailer likewise the service line must be connected together. The service line connected with the air control line over the truck, the control line over the trailer with the control of the normal application for the brake with the emergency line with the connect for the supply with the truck with the emergency relay valve with the trailer. Emergency line should break off with the disconnect. The trailer brakes automatically apply. Air shutoff cock is located with each of the trailer connection outlet on the truck. The cock must be turned off to prevent loose of air when truck brake system is not connected to the truck brake system. Alright, a quick disconnect air hose coupling assembly installed with the air with the line connections, both trailer and truck with the coupling with assembly contained lock pin with a replaceable body washer with the trailer connection not being used with the dummy coupling is installed with the evening air hose coupling with assembly with the jerk with the water with the coupling flexible high pressure hose with the use with the connect with the air coupling assembly with the truck and the trailer with together housing coupling. Hose coupling with assembly with the interlock with the couplings of the vehicles are installed at the end of the hose. Emergency relay valve. The trailers are coupled with their own air reservoir. Have the emergency relay valve. The valve is bound with the trailer's air reservoir with the air over hydraulic cylinder. Consider the relay with the section, emergency section, which work together to control the action of the air over the hydraulic cylinder and wheel brakes. The normal operation emergency relay valve is served with the relay station. It receives the air pressure for the control signal with the truck with the brake system with the relay with the trailer brakes instead of the air pressure directly with the truck to apply with the trailer brakes. The valve uses the air from the trailer air reservoir with the brakes are released. The air pressure is relieved with the exhaust ports on the emergency relay valve. The relay action of the valve speed for the action of the brakes. In addition, above the emergency relay valve control the flow of the air from the truck reservoir with the truck trailer reservoir. Since the trailer does not have the air compressor, but it depends on the truck's compressor air system to keep it in the air reservoir pump. Emergency relay valve also directs air pressure for the air over the hydraulic system automatically applied with the trailer brake if the trailer breaks away from the truck, or if there's serious leak in the emergency line. Emergency relay valve, the two main body sections are separated by a relay valve diaphragm in three internal valves and a number of air passage thread openings provided with the connection emergency airline, surface airline, and air reservoir air over hydraulic cylinder. Exhaust opening is also threaded. Drain plug is usually provided in the bottom of the assembly for drain condensation. Or your air over hydraulic cylinder. Air over hydraulic cylinder assembly of the trailer consists of the brake jam, air chamber for the hydraulic master cylinder. The master cylinder is like with the typical hydraulic brake cylinder system. Or master cylinder, you use the force fluid under the pressure with the wheel cylinder into the wheel brake with the brake air chamber to change the air pressure into the mechanical motion with the operator with the master cylinder with the tandem axle trailers. The air over hydraulic cylinders may be used on each axle. Brake air chamber contained with the diaphragm secured between the outer edge of the body with the cover of the diaphragm airtight with the divide with the chamber into the pressure non-pressure side with the pressure side of the chamber threading opening with the connecting with the brake A ply with the airline with the non-pressure side venting with the outside of the air with the compression spring with the non-pressure side and holds the push rod against the diaphragm return to the bolt with the diaphragm push rod to the pressure side of the chamber and end with the push rod extend with the non-pressure side of the chamber. Master cylinder is mounted with the brake air chamber so that the push rod along with the master cylinder piston with the compressed air with the engine for the pressure rod. Brake chamber with the diaphragm, move the door with the non-pressure side with the extend with the push rod, move with the master cylinder piston, forcing the brake fluid into the wheel cylinder with the supply with the brake spring, compressed air into the chamber, the relief of the compressed spring, return with the push rod with the diaphragm pressure line side of the chamber allowing the brakes to release. Alright, learning event 2, describe the operation of air hydraulic brake system. The 5-ton 6x6 truck, familiar with the component of the makeup of the air hydraulic brake system. Let's see how they work together. Stop the vehicle with the first. Let's consider the truck with the not connected with the trailer. We'll use the braking system 5-ton 6x6 truck for our discussion. It shows the air hydraulic cylinder. Alright, A, double check valve with assembly. B, with the air control valve to receive the relay position with the D, the diaphragm assembly. E, the explorer with the receive. F, the trailer connection. G, the atmospheric pop at the clothes. H, air pressure pop to open. With J, with the compressor air reservoir. K, the air compressor for the L, the compressor air inlet line. M, the hydraulic outlet port. N, the brake pedal. P, residual line check valve with assembly. Q, with the hydraulic piston. R, the poppet return spring with the S, the diaphragm return springs. A, the master cylinder. U, hydraulic inlet line. V, with the push rod. W, the piston return spring. X, the power piston trailer connection. Or when the brake pedal is pushed down with the brake fluid, it's pushed through the hydraulic system with the fluid pressure for the transmission, for the slave cylinder with the relay piston, with the control unit, with the relay, with the piston chain, with the hydraulic pressure and mechanical motion, which push rod diaphragm assembly, with again for the atmospheric poppet to the flow of the air exhaust passage to open the air pressure poppet. Compressor airline can now flow with the reservoir through the compressor airline with the pass of the open air pressure poppet into the control line. Control unit. The airflow with the directive of the control line with the leaving the control unit, one line with the surface outlet with the control line to the trailer brake. The other control line carried with the air pressure for the power cylinder, the air hydraulic cylinder, the air pressure for the power piston attached with the push rod toward the slave cylinder. The extending push rod contacts the slave cylinder, hydraulic piston for the pushes it forward closed with the check valve with the hydraulic piston for the brake fluid with the pressure force with the outlet to the wheel cylinder to apply with the brakes. The fluid pressure is due to the wheel brake is now being produced to the two sources with the air pressure for the pushing of the power piston and one source, and the second source of the pressure applied with the brake pedal. Hydraulic pressure for the master cylinder push on the slave with the cylinder position piston along with the push rod with the two forces together. The amount of the air pressure permitted to enter the power cylinder is regulated with the pressure applied with the brake pedal. To see how this is possible, assuming the driver applies enough pressure on the brake pedal to slow the truck down enough to lock the brake wheels. The air pressure for this has been permitted to enter the control unit, push for the diaphragm assembly of the temp to close the air inlet possible. Poppet valve with the recoil with the hydraulic pressure for the master cylinder with the relay with the position with the air inlet poppet with the therefore the air pressure for the gain for the diaphragm assembly of the output for the hydraulic pressure for the relay position for the air pressure for the creature for the point which overcome the hydraulic pressure for the diaphragm assembly of the relay valve with the base more so move slightly allowing air inlet poppet valve the close and checking shutting off the air and incoming air. But atmospheric poppet remains closed with the control air pressure for the trap and power cylinder with the nose, the holding of lap position. Air hydraulic cylinder will remain in holding position, maintaining unchanging amount of the controlled air pressure along with the same amount of foot pressure is applied with the brake pedal with the amount of the brake application determined by the amount of the controlled air pressure for the trap in the power cylinder. The more foot with the pressure applied with the brake pedal, the more hydraulic pressure is applied on the relay piston. It opens the air inlet poppet and the controlled air pressure increase until the grid enough and they overcome the inlet increase of the hydraulic pressure more move over the relay piston back, allowing the air inlet poppet to close. When the brake pedal is released, the hydraulic pressure around the relay with the piston with the remove of the valve of the diaphragm, return the string with the return of the diaphragm, assembly to release position with the opening of the atmospheric poppet with the control pressure with the relief of the outside of the air with the passing through the drill center of the diaphragm assembly, exhaust port with the piston, return spring with the return of the power with the piston with the push rod, hydraulic piston with the release position. As the hydraulic piston near the release position, check valve at the center of the piston and open to the residual check valve with the assembly with the outlet of the slide cylinder, maintain slight pressure within line with the wheel cylinder just as the master cylinder check valve with the straight hydraulic brakes. To operate properly, the air hydraulic system must have a supply with the compressor air with the air supply should fail with the vehicle with the brakes will be applied with the brake pedal is pressed. Brake fluid with the master cylinder will flow with the check valve into the center of the slave cylinder hydraulic piston with the wheel. Brakes there will be no boost for the air power cylinder, but the vehicle will could be operated in emergency conditions. Now let's distance complete compressed air system from the 5-ton with the 6x6 dark with the truck with the emergency trailer coupling with the front with the well as well with the rear with the truck must be towed with the trailer coupling with the front end of the connection with the rear trailer with the coupling with the towing of the truck with the two brake system connected in the span of the brakes of the bolt with the truck with the control from the towing truck with the double check valve directly from the flow of the controlled air pressure. On the double check valve with the located with the control line with the connection to air hydraulic cylinder with the center connection with the valve with the connect with the power cylinder with the control line with the air hydraulic cylinder control valve connect with the end of the connection with the double check valve with the control with the service line with the front of the truck with the attached with the remaining connection with the double check valve. When the control unit with the air hydraulic cylinder is in with the air pressure for the double check valve with the air pressure move with the sliding with the pressure of the valve closing service line passage front of the truck with the air can move with the freely with the control unit through the double check valve with the power cylinder to apply the brake. When the truck is being towed, the brakes supply with a double-dead check valve to prevent the prevents the escape of the controlled air from the towing with the truck with the air control pressure with the towing with the truck flow through the surface line with the double check valve with the control of the air move the sliding move piston closing with the passage of the air hydraulic control unit. The control air pressure now flows freely for the tow of the truck through the double check valve into the power cylinder with the two remaining double check valves directly with the controlled air flowing to the trailing surface the coupling with the rear of the truck with the air connected to the control pressure furnished from one of the control unit the contact and not flow to the another control unit. This must be done to prevent escape of the control pressure. For this instance, the control pressure for the air hydraulic cylinder is allowed to flow for the control line with the hand control valve. Pressure will be released through the open hand control exhaust valve, the double check valve, with the one on the 5-ton truck. It is possible with the brake of the tow with the vehicle with applied with either brake with the pedal with the hand control with the towing truck. Brake pedal push down brakes the both towing and the towed vehicle with applied with the hand control valve is applied with the double check valve with direct control air. So only the brakes of the tow of the vehicles are applied. Alright, your 2.5-ton truck. Principal operation air hydraulics of the 5-ton with 6x6 truck with applied with the air hydraulic brake with the 2.5-ton series truck. However, the enough difference with the design with the two brake systems so for the short discussed in 2.5-ton truck brakes is needed. Air hydraulic system with the 2.5-ton truck with located different within the 5-ton truck with the operation is about the same with the brake fluid applied pressure for the master cylinder transmitted to the slave cylinder fluid patch at one end with the hydraulic control valve with the piston with the control valve piston with the pushes with the slave cylinder with the compensator piston with the segment with the closer with the air exhaust valve opening the air inlet valve with the air pressure for the reservoir flow with the air inlet opening and opening for the control line with the power cylinder with the second control line to the trailer surface coupling. Air pressure on the compensator piston with the hydraulic pressure on the control valve with the opposed with each of the regulated controlled air pressure for the brake pedal. The relief of the hydraulic pressure removed with the control valve with the open valve piston with the compensator piston with the spring return with the compensator piston with the control valve through with the release position. The slab with the air inlet valve with the closed and the open with the air exhaust valve. Control pressure with the off through the hollow compensator piston with the other air breather port. The power system hydraulic slave cylinder works just like the power and slave cylinder of the 5-ton truck with the two exemption of the hydraulic piston with the return line and hour slave cylinder. Piston spring with the nose hydraulic line pressure for the check valve within the outlet with the 2.5-ton truck slave cylinder like the 5-ton truck. 2.5-ton M35 series trucks have residual line pressure check valve with the outlet with the master cylinder. M35 Chicago trucks do not have the hand control valve with the trailing coupling front of the truck with the 5-ton truck does. However, do have the surface emergency trailer couplings they have the rear of the truck with the 2.5-ton tractor. Tractor trucks have a hand control valve. The trailer brakes can be operated separately. Several different applications for the air over hydraulic brake system for the U with the trailer, but they can be broken down into the two general type of the braking system, the automatic brake protection and brake systems that do not have breakaway protection. The trailer or air over hydraulic system, they do not have breakaway protection only with the air hose coupling with the must be connected with the surface of the truck, trailer coupling on the truck. Either the brake of the foot pedal with the hand control valve of the truck is applied with the brake control the air pressure flow with the surface of the airline with the trailer. On the trailer, the airline can carry the control air for the air filter with the brake air chain with the brake of the air chain with the chain with the air pressure for the brake. Mechanical motion needed to work with the hydraulic master cylinder. The air chamber for the push rod move with the master cylinder piston with the brake. Fluid is forced from the wheel of the cylinder with the plow with the wheel brake. The brakes are relieved with the drive of the air pressure for the instrument trailer. Brake air chamber flows back through the truck with the surface of the line with the exhaust with the head and control valve of the air hydraulic cylinder control unit. Trailers automatic breakaway protection with the emergency air hose coupling with the emergency relay valve of the air reserve products all of the parts of the trailer brake system without breakaway protection. The action of the brake system control with the emergency relay valve of this last discussed in the operation. With the air hose coupling connected with the truck for the air shut off a cock opens the compressed air from the truck reservoir flow for the emergency line with the supply of the air and the opening emergency relay valve of the air flow with the check valve of the channel with the emergency valve of the diaphragm with the air supply with the passive reservoir line opening the trailer reservoir with the airflow continues until the pressure for the trailer reservoir is equal to the pressure from the truck reservoir. Then these conditions the air pressure above and below the emergency diaphragm is equal to the emergency diaphragm spring hold of the diaphragm is raised position. When the truck driver applies the brakes control the air from the truck flow with the surface line with the control line and the top of the emergency line with the relay valve with the internal passage carry with the control pressure for the cavity with the relay valve with the diaphragm to cover the cavity to small with the control the air fills quickly remove the diaphragm relay valve with the plunger compensating with the relay valve with the diaphragm spring. The valve of the plunger closes the exhaust valve with the compressor with the valve spring opening in the air inlet valve with the compressing air now flow over the trailer reservoir through the reservoir line opening past opening air inlet valve out over the outlet opening of the brake brake chamber, the brake chamber, the valve with the extended working master cylinder applying the brakes. When the driver relief of the brake with the control line, pressure for the relief of the top of the relay valve diaphragm of the relay with the valve plunger. The diaphragm spring with the push is the relay valve plunger, opening with the exhaust valve with the permitting of the valve spring with the flow of the air in the valve of the brake. Apply with the air pressure of the brake of the chamber of the relay to open air by passing through the open center of the relay valve plunger cavity with the connected with the exhaust port with the emergency relay valve. The emergency relay valve to maintain air applied pressure of the brake chamber, the corresponding with the air control pressure from the truck with the nose of the balance with the holding position, for the brake control pressure for the truck pushing down on the relay diaphragm is equal to the upward pressure on the diaphragm. Upward pressure exerted with the diaphragm spring of the brake applied with the air pressure, the applied pressure for the mid of the bottom side with the relay diaphragm with the internal passages from the air applied passages. When pressure on the both sides of the diaphragm are equal, the diaphragm is held with the mid position with the both of the air and inlet valve of the air exhaust valve is closed, which maintains a definite amount of the brake applied air pressure. If control of the pressure is increased, the push of the valve plunger down, opening air inlet valve with increase of the applied pressure for the control pressure for the decrease of the valve plunger moves, exhausting some of the applied pressure. Now let's see if this emergency relay with the valve to do the automatic breakaway protect from the emergency air line with the air spin the supply in the opening of the air pressure for the truck reservoir with the present of the bottom of the side of the emergency valve of the diaphragm, air pressure from the trailer reservoir with the present of the top side with the emergency valve of the diaphragm with the air supply with the passage for the reservoir line in the opening. Air can pass from the truck reservoir with the track to the trailer reservoir through one check valve with the emergency valve of the diaphragm with the during normal operation. Air pressure above the low of the diaphragm is equal at the time of this emergency valve of the diaphragm release, but the spring will hold the diaphragm in a raised position. Assuming that there is loss of air pressure from the emergency line, this could cause with the trailer breaking away from the truck with the braking line, the leaking with the disconnected emergency air hose, of the coupling, and the move of the air pressure for the bottom side with the emergency valve diaphragm. Air pressure for the trailer reservoir from the top of the diaphragm, pushing the diaphragm down with the compressing of the diaphragm release spring. The downward movement is transferred to the relay valve plunger, closing with the air exhaust valve with the opening of the air inlet valve with allowing the compressed air to flow through the reservoir for the brake chamber, locking the brakes. The relay valve plunger will remain applied with position as long as there is pressure for the truck trailer reservoir until the surface line is reconnected with the truck. To relieve the trailer brakes for the connecting of the trailer to the truck with the drain cock is with the bottom of the reservoir should be open to allow all compressed air for the system to escape. Alright, learning event 3, the described inspection procedure, air hydraulic brake system. Maintenance of the air hydraulic brake system is much same as that of the straight hydraulic brake system. The major difference between the two of the air hydraulic system contains components for compressing air with the air applied with the air pressure for the hydraulic system. As with the automotive system, the well-organized sequence of the events of the time take place properly with the maintaining air hydraulic braking system steps of they include the pre-road test inspection, road test, and after-road and test inspection. To determine if there are any troubleshooting of the terms, determine the cause of the failure, with the service require the correct failure of the maintenance procedure between 2.5 and 5 ton military vehicle. The braking system not vary too much there through the outlet of the less than general maintenance practice that will pertain to all of the air hydraulic braking systems unless specific exemptions are discussed. Before road test inspection, many times with a good visual inspection is all that is needed to locate with the brake failure, but to ensure that all the ports of the brake system are working properly. Complete inspection should be made. Best place to start the visual inspection of the brake pedal with the chain of the inch of the brake pedal that does not bind with the operator for the linkage control correctly. The pedal is relieved. The spring tension should be returned to its release stop position. Check to ensure that there is enough free travel of the pedal movement to allow the brakes to completely relieve the pedal is released. Check the wear of the pedal pushing. The pedal should be moved freely but not having no sideways motion. Check the pedal travel the sponginess which would indicate air in the hydraulic system. Inspect the master cylinder next. Check the fluid level correct with the necessary using proper tools. Check all of the mounting bolts if they are tight and check the cylinder for leaks in the housing and around the dust boot and all fittings where the lines are connected. Ensure the reservoir vents are open properly. Next, valve of the cylinder hydraulics line with the master cylinder with the air hydraulic cylinder. Check for the brakes and kinks for the leaking of the connection. Inspect air hydraulic cylinder mounting bolts with tightness and cylinders for the dents. For checking the leaks of the connection. Follow the hydraulic linings from the air hydraulic cylinder to the tails of the front with the rear axle for the one at each wheel cylinder. Check all lines of the links and kinks of the cracks of each line with the supported properly with the frame axle with each of the flexible link for the frayed material. Our inspection backplating along lower drum area with each of the wheel with the indication of the brake fluid. The leaking wheel cylinder will leave the tray for the fluid that can often be seen with the pulling of the wheel with the brake of the drum. The type of the wheel, type of the leak will suck with the brake line with the cover of the brake to grab the wall of the wheels and check each of the one with the secure lugs and nuts. Next, to check the air compressor system. Be sure the compressor, if the mount of the screw of the air breather is clean, and inspect with the driver belt where applicable, prove propertiness and condition. Warn or freight glazed belt can cause trouble. To check for the condition, all airlines connection with the compressor with the governor, pressure for the gauge for the buzzer system, tanks for the air hydraulic cylinder. For the tightening for the connection, check for the air tank with the screw of the mounting of the condition. Open the petcocks to be sure that all moisture has been drained and closed again. Determine the exact road test inspection. Determine exactly how well the brake system is operating with the vehicle. Must have the trailer connect the road test include with the checks are made properly to move the vehicle while the vehicle is in motion. After the road test is finished, start with the engine and adjust the throttle so that the run is about 1,000 RPMs while the engine is warming up. Following steps should be performed. Ensure that the warning buzzer operates when the air pressure builds up to 60 psi. Watch the air pressure gauge and notice whether or not the air pressure builds up steadily. Check to see if the governor operates with the pressure to reach of the about 105 psi. If the governor does not stop with the pressure of the building up over 105 to 120 psi, the engine must be shot with the system repaired. Operate the brake pedal several times to check the action of the pedal is by its field. Should be able to tell if the brakes are applying. Pump the brakes for the air pressure for the drop of the 80 to the 105 psi. This time the governor should start with the compressor again, when the pressure should build back up to 105 to 120 psi. Stay there. When the pressure reaches 105 to 120 psi, turn the engine off with the watch for the pressure gauge. That the pressure drop the net for 1 minute. You can notice on the gauge to indicate that these leaks for the system must be corrected. For the road test part of the inspection is made to determine how well the working part of the brake system operates. Making with the road test, the vehicle trailer should correct connected to the truck so that the entire brake system should be tested. The test of the operation of the brake several times. This should be done for speeds from 20 to 40 miles an hour. Try slowing the vehicle to bring it into complete stop. Check it and see if the excessive pressure required with the brake pedal to stop the vehicle. The brake pedal must be pressed down near the floorboard before brakes hold. The vehicle pulls one side of the brake. The vehicle comes to up to proper speed. One or more brakes locks braking rapidly. There's any unusual noise, chatter from the brakes as are applied. Alright, after road test inspection is made able to see if any unusual handling happened during the road test. Check the temperature of the brake and temperature of the brake drum of the truck and the trailer. They should be warm but not very hot. Check to see if there is indication of the new brake fluid leaks. Check the trailer brake air line connection for leak. Troubleshooting. After completing with the inspection road test of the vehicle braking with the system, you should be able to pretty good idea what the system is doing wrong. The next thing you find is making with the system something wrong. There's known with the troubleshooting, the constantly isolating and locating the parts of the causing the trouble. To refer to the major trouble, the malfunction, to discuss several things that can cover each of the malfunctions as well with what should be done and to correct the trouble. Insufficient brakes. When you we will sometimes find braking system will not press against the brake line with against the drums hard enough to stop the vehicle in the proper distance. Check the wheel braking light condition adjustment. If the linings have been worn badly, they should be replaced with the too far for the braking drum, but they should be adjusted. Check the air pressure system to ensure the minimum of the 80 to 105 psi. Correct any leak and replace with the components that are not working. Check the air hydraulic cylinder with the proper operation. Certain tests of which and we'll discuss later to become determined if the component is doing its job. Alright, brake supply slowly. If the press of the brake pedal with the brake action does not occur immediately, indicate the binding of the weak. Is someplace first and ensure there's sufficient air pressure. There's no water condensation. Compressed air system. Alright, check all air hydraulic lines to ensure that they're not kinking with the point of the wheel. Restrict the flow of the air hydraulic fluid. The check of the brake shoe, if they're anchored, they should move freely if not bind. Brakes dragging. The malfunction noticeable with the road testing of the vehicle. The vehicle holds back with trying to accelerate. When the disengage with the clutch, the trucks will not coast freely. First, check the brake pedal with the play adjust and ensure they have proper clearance. If the pedal does not allow with the master cylinder piston with the primary couple to clear with the compensate with the port with the brake cylinder. Brake fluid cannot come back with the master cylinder reservoir for the wheel cylinder. Next, check with the brake adjustment each wheel to ensure that there's enough clearance for the brakes to release. Restrict the air hydraulic lines can also prevent the brakes from releasing. Ensure the brake shoes are not sticking on the anchor pins. Check with the master cylinder operation form material with the oil and dirt with the brake fluid with the reservoir. Plug in the pores of the warp with the rubber couple. This will prevent the fluid from returning to the reservoir. Sticky piston wheel cylinders can also leave the dragging brakes. Piston cylinders are corroded. The cylinders assembly should be replaced at last resort with the check with the operation with the air hydraulic cylinder. Possible air valve not allowing the compressed air of the cylinder escape. Test indicates proper operation. The air hydraulic cylinder should be replaced. Alright, brakes grab. The malfunction is most noticeable. The first apply with the brake. For the assume that the brakes are applied with the wheels tends to lock. Tires slide on the road. Sometimes only one wheel will grab while the others and one will grab. Grease fluid. Grip with the brake line with the primary cover with the flow with the least condition line with the must replay with the brake shoe with the binding of the anchor with the snap out with the drum with enough pressure applied. Loose spring D bolts and properly adjusted wheel bearings can cover the position. Wheel shift with the brakes applied with loose linings of the brake shoe. Weak of the broken brake shoe. Return springs will allow the brake to grab. Brake drums that are out of round and scored and cracked can also cover the brakes to lock up. Noisy brake squealing and grinding noises of the brakes were applied are not normal. Glazed linings makes the brakes squeal and should be replaced. Should scored brakes and linings are wore down and the rivets as if the rivets or the shoes will cover the grinding noises. If the brake shoe, the backing plate, the anchor pins are bent and warped, brake shoes will make unusual no sound when applied. This page is intentionally left blank. You have your practice exercises, your answers, and we move on to lesson 3, air brake systems.